Welcome to Square State Sandlot Podcast. On this episode, we discuss the NFL owners' meetings, Raiders and Steelers news and notes, as well as Bills versus Chiefs, Broncos versus Chargers, the Panthers firing Matt Rhule, and will they begin a fire sale including trading Christian McCaffrey, Major League Baseball playoffs, Bama versus Tennessee, and NBA tip-off. Hope you guys enjoy. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Bill Montoya. Co-host Kyle Gilmore is joining me. We got another exciting episode to bring you guys. We went live unannounced, so hopefully some of you guys will jump in. And when you get towards, or when you guys get in, feel free to leave any comments, questions you guys might have for us. There's also a link right above my head. If you guys don't follow us, you can get us there. It's got all our socials linked there, YouTube page, all that fun stuff. So feel free to follow us if you enjoy what we put out there and help spread the news. Kyle, you want to just jump right into the NFL stuff? I know there's quite a bit to talk about there.
Yeah, I guess we can start off with the Dan Snyder stuff. We've talked pretty extensively on here about the Dan Snyder situation, what's happened, what our opinions are on it. But a lot happened, I guess, this past week. Jim Irsay of the Colts came out and said that there is merit to removing Dan Snyder. I really, regardless of how you feel about the guy, because Jim Irsay's been a character for years, but
He has.
I was so happy to see someone come out and just say it. I feel like everyone's been on eggshells about it.
Yep.
It's like people don't want to speak out about one of their own, speaking of owners. And it was just very refreshing for somebody to be like, no, this is a chance to do the right thing. And
Jim Irsay Jim Irsay's had problems of his own. I mean, he had the whole substance addiction thing, and then I believe he was, maybe that all stemmed with that driving under the influence charge as well. I think that's what it all stemmed from. So, I mean, he's not, the poster child for best behavior, but he was willing to stick his neck out there, and that's absolutely admirable when you're talking about all these guys. It's a tight-knit group. I know Dan Snyder has never been part of the gang, even when he was the youngest owner at the time when he bought the Redskins and now Washington Commanders. And he's never really been part of the gang. I mean, right at his first owners meeting, he was trying to, make his presence known and all that. None of the owners really liked him. So it kind of surprised me that no one was willing to go after him. And maybe it's because of this ESPN report that he's been digging up dirt on all the other owners, hiring private investigators, all that. But Jim Irsay flat out said, dig up all you want. I don't care. I mean, you can dig till the day's done. I don't care what you're gonna find there. We need to make a stand and get this guy out of the league because of what he stands for. And in that report, it basically said that Dan Snyder has veto power on any release of information. So this report, I mean, it's kind of a farce, really.
Yeah.
And Roger Goodell didn't want any written report. So anything that he had presented to him was only orally between him and whoever was presenting it. So this whole investigation's been awful. I know
a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I know they've found more than what they've disclosed, obviously. So I think it's past time for them to get to this vote and force him out of the league. And he said, he was asked the question, do you think it's okay to just have him removed as owner? Essentially what they've already done, air quotes, and given it to his wife, but he's still allowed at all the games. He's still there in all the meetings.
Yeah.
So
changes
I think
nothing.
Yeah, I think by forcing a sell, that at least gets him out of that room and actual change. So bravo, Jim Irsay.
Yes. Yeah, I was super impressed with him, and I'm hoping more and more people will speak out about things as time goes on. There's a lot going on in the league as far as conduct and things like that. So the more people that are, especially the people in power, like a Jim Irsay, the more people that come out and speak out about this stuff is, I think, going to be beneficial to the league, to the fans. I mean, everybody. So pretty
For
cool.
sure. And we had another event at the owners meeting, and apparently they went to vote on restructuring Roger Goodell's compensation. And Jerry Jones was the only one of the 32 owners that voted no against the restructuring of his contract to essentially reward him. And apparently that caused a little tiff between Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft, where he essentially told him not to F with him. So that's interesting. Um, Jerry Jones has
Good
never
times.
been one to keep his opinion hidden or anything like that. So I just thought it was interesting that those two butted heads of all people, because they're some of the older owners in the league. So
Hmm.
just an interesting little tidbit there. And then some other news that came out from the owners meetings: Amazon and the NFL agreed to do a Black Friday game in 2023, which I hate this personally.
So
Um,
do I.
we've already talked about it. The Thursday night games are awful. Doesn't give guys time to rest and recover and all that. The product that they put out there is, I mean, how many bad Thursday night games have there been already this season? I think every single one of
Like
them has
all of
been
them.
awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting more of those games is not what we're looking for. And I really feel like this is just a ploy by Jeff Bezos to keep people out of
Oh,
the
it's a
physical
cash grab.
stores. Yeah, keep people out of the physical stores so they'll be shopping on his site instead. So I mean, I guess genius move by him, but we don't need any more short week games in the NFL. Not at all. That it? You
Yeah,
don't have
it's
anything to add?
I'm so tired of Amazon and football. The streaming is terrible. I'm
It
so
is.
over it. Just they should have released NFL Plus the way that it should have been intended
Yep.
and made it Sunday ticket. You pay whatever, just like MLB, just like NHL. I get every one of my games. I pay my monthly premium. Just be done with it. This needing 14 different streamings to catch every game is just, it's very annoying.
Well, and
Um, and
as
I think
many
the
times
quality is just terrible.
as many times as the Broncos have been on prime time this year, I think it's already 3 or 4. I can't remember. Um,
Yeah.
basically, those games you don't even need to watch because there's no entertaining factor at all in those games. So,
Well, and
um,
they have the ability to audible these primetime games. They
well,
do it
not
every
on
year.
Thursday nights, unfortunately.
Right, right, right. But that needs to change, and that's
Yep.
another reason to get rid of the Thursday night games because I'm sorry, Broncos fans, but Denver should not have a single primetime game for the
I
rest of the season
I
moving
can
forward.
get the people that were buying into the hype at the beginning of the season, but after seeing them
Oh
play a
yeah, I'm
couple
sure they're good
games,
on
it's like,
paper.
yeah, maybe we don't show them every week, and that's what it's been almost. And I think they
I
still
don't know
have a
Broncos fans. I don't know Broncos fans that finish those games.
no.
Like, I
Um,
mean, they're terrible.
I think they still have a Christmas game, if I remember right, and then maybe one more in prime
Yeah.
time. But I think they can flex them out of the last one, so I'm sure that will be done. But it's
Fingers
frustrating.
crossed, I guess.
Do you want to just hit news and notes before we get to our teams, or do you want to go straight into our teams?
It doesn't matter wherever you want to go.
Well,
I
I'll,
guess you
I'll
can
just touch on the
hit Nate
Raiders. There's not
Hobbs.
much there because obviously we just came off the bye week, so um, seems like we're at least mostly healthy. There were 3 people on or I guess 4 people on the injury report starting practice today. Um, only Darren Waller didn't participate. He was interviewed and he said, I don't know if I'm going to make it this week, but it's not a long term thing. So sounds like he's probably going to be out this week. He didn't participate in practice today. I think it's probably a long shot that he plays in this game against the Texans, but hopefully we have him back against the Jaguars. I think that's the better team that we'll actually need him for. And then Nate Hobbs was sent to the IR. He actually broke his hand in the last game and then got it casted up and came back in and finished the game out. So that's admirable. But at the same time, when you're a press corner, if you don't have one of your hands, I mean, that's going to be a
Yeah.
really tough
Yep.
day to get anything done. So They moved him to the IR. He'll be back. I think they're looking at that 4-week timeline for him to come back. And then we have Averett that had the broken thumb. He practiced full today, so it sounds like he'll be activated off the IR. And then DJ Turner also practiced full today, so he's probably going to come off the IR as well. Although I wouldn't be surprised to see him move to the practice squad or waived, whatever. So not a lot of news from my Raiders, obviously being on the bye week. Had a lot of time to reflect on what was going wrong in the games. I think they played their two best games against Denver and then the Chiefs. So if you're looking at building some momentum going into that bye week, obviously you'd like to have the win against the Chiefs, but at least it looks like they're putting things together. So there's some optimism there. And then they did have a couple signings and cutting guys off the practice squad, but nothing major. So Nate, I already mentioned Nate Hobbs, but there's Jonathan Abram and Clee Farrell. They're both mentioned on the trade block, so we'll see if they make a trade with one of those two. I still think they need to add to the offensive line, get a guard to replace Alex Bars. Another right tackle if they could. I don't know if that's going to happen at this point of the season. And then we need a defensive, probably need another defensive back at this point, because what we have, especially with Nate Hobbs going to the IR, even if Averett comes back, we're pretty short at cornerback. So probably need to make a move there if we could to make a trade for one of those. I know there's, especially the Panthers fired Matt Rhule, so it seems like they're ready to have a fire sale. We'll talk about that in a minute, but do you want to get to your Steelers stuff, and then we'll talk about the rest of the league?
Yeah, I mean the biggest tidbit obviously is Kenny Pickett. He left that game with a concussion, but he has cleared protocol and he's on track to start Sunday versus Miami. So definitely happy to have him back. Happy to have more of our players back. We actually played last week against Tampa Bay without our three starting corners, without Minkah Fitzpatrick. Obviously, T.J. Watt's been out. Our defense was down to, I mean, we were playing people I've never heard of. So,
yep.
I was surprised getting some healthy players
played.
back. We're starting to see some flashes. I'm telling you, I know it's hard to be optimistic when you start the season this way, but there are some flashes there that I think if Canada ever gets out of the way of Kenny, I think you're going to see the offense open up. I mean, there's some things. Chase Claypool had a monster game. We've been waiting for that for a season. I mean, he never got there last year.
Yep.
So I'm hoping to see more of that. Najee looked better. Anybody who's listened has known that I've had some issues with him. I figured there was something wrong. I ended up tagging Bill in the article talking about the fact that he's been wearing a plate on his foot. Last week was the first time he didn't wear it, and he looks noticeably better. Not perfect, but there was a difference. I don't know. I was very happy with the way we played Tampa Bay. We were obviously not picked to win that game. I picked us, but we were definitely underdogs. There was a lot of them this week, but that's the biggest thing is just Kenny's back. And I mean, I hate to say it, but Miami's a team that's kind of on the downturn. So I'm hoping that helps us string another win together. You know, they're not the same team they were, you know, a few weeks ago, obviously, but I don't know. We'll see how this game goes. I was pleasantly surprised with the Tampa Bay game. Defense hung tough. They harassed, you know, Brady all day. And the corners, the guys that came in, I mean, they didn't play perfect, but they did what they needed to do to keep us in that game. And I mean, I have to give props to Mitch too. Mitch came in and kept us in that game and scored a touchdown. And I mean, he technically won it for us. Kenny kept us in a good spot, but you got to give props to Mitch because he came in and finished. So it's good to have.
It's funny because when I saw his performance when he came in, I was like, wait, why is Mitch in? And then I texted you and you said that Kenny got hit in the head. And I saw what he did after Kenny went out. And I was like, I wonder if this is kind of one of those, you know, Fitz magic sort of effects where
this
he's
whole
not a
time,
good starter, but a great backup.
This whole time, ever since we signed him, that's all I kept saying was he reminds me of Fitzpatrick, because I think he's that guy you want at number 2.
Yep.
And Fitzpatrick did the same thing. He made a career out of it. When he started, had some rough seasons, but man, if you had a quarterback go down, he was going to take you to the playoffs.
That's crazy.
I don't know,
And
just weird.
I mean, I'm sure you guys could keep him for forever. I mean, if you look at
Oh, absolutely.
Chargers have
Contract's
Chase
good.
Daniel, he's bounced all over the place as a backup. I think he's made over
He's
50 million as a backup quarterback in this league.
he's killed
I
it.
mean, and I think he's only played in like 15 games or something and made 50 million.
Oh
That's
yeah.
absolutely insane. That's the best job in America right there is Chase
Well
Daniel.
played, sir.
But no,
But yeah,
anything
that's
else
it
you
for
had?
us.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, no, I was pleasantly surprised by your guys' performance. I picked Tampa Bay, um, but Tampa
I
Bay
think
has a lot
everyone
of.
did.
They have their own issues. I mean, their offensive line has been absolutely garbage, and I mean,
Yeah.
you guys have a great defensive line, so that contributed. But I don't think Tom's too happy about coming back this season. I think that's
This will
probably
definitely
an
be the last
understatement.
one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
personal stuff aside, he's not having a good year.
So I think America's game for this past week was probably Chiefs and Bills, a rematch of the AFC
Yes.
Championship, or that was the division game? Yeah, division game.
Division, yeah.
I think everyone's counting as that being the championship game this season. Um, did you think that lived up to the hype, or what did you think
I
about
think
that one?
I think it lived up to the hype and more. I mean, I guess it depends, because if you were wanting another 13-second game, then no, we didn't have that. It did come down to it. Um, but I think this was kind of the epitome of the Bills kind of blossoming past the Achilles heel that the Chiefs are or were for them. For it to finish the way it did, also with them harassing Mahomes and then him throwing a pick to finish the game, it's
Yep.
not something that Chiefs fans are used to seeing. The way Josh carried himself the entire game, it just felt to me like this was finally that point where they pulled ahead in the horse race. Like, you saw that they handled them on all facets of the game. Sure, it was a good game, close game, but the Bills were never out of control.
Yeah.
Um, they stuck to what they were doing. They stuck to the game plan, and nothing was ever frantic. And that's what killed the Chiefs at the end. Is then everything was frantic, and you cannot be that team that's expecting that lightning strike every single time.
Yep.
It's not always going to be there for you. So I was happy for it to end the way it did, and I was happy for it to finish with a Mahomes pick.
Yeah.
Little
It's beautiful.
tidbit there made me happy. So
Yeah, Taron Johnson. I mean, that guy has been a stud for the Bills, and quite
yeah,
honestly, the Bills have been pretty banged up. So the fact that they were able to go out and win at Arrowhead, finish this
yeah,
game off, they're still missing Micah Hyde. He's going to be, I think he's out the rest of the season, if I remember right. And then they're still missing Tre'Davious White, although he should be coming back soon. So
soon.
they
Yeah,
should be getting help at the cornerback position. Jordan Poyer, man, what a gutsy performance by him.
what
He
a
wasn't
cool
even cleared.
story. Oh
Yeah,
my
I mean, he wasn't
god,
even cleared to fly with the team, and ended up
15-hour
driving.
drive.
Yeah, driving 15 hours, uh, playing in that game, and then he had to drive 15 hours back. Obviously, he wasn't the one driving, but still, that's a 15
What a
hour ride
monster, man.
with his family. So tough performance by him. Josh
Yeah,
Allen is now, I think, a lock for MVP unless he were to get hurt
yeah,
or start playing awful, which I don't see that happening. The guy is just
no,
at another level. He leads the league in passing. I'm pretty sure he's leading his team in rushing. He's got more touchdowns than just about anyone. So
yeah,
I think he's the favorite to win the MVP. And I mean, obviously, we were picking him at the beginning of the season because he's our guy. But
right.
great to see him continue to blossom. A lot of people thought when Brian Dable left that he was going to have a pullback, but Ken Dorsey is doing an absolute wonderful job with that team.
Oh, man.
And then Leslie Frazier, man, he's ready, locked and ready for another head coaching position. The way that he's had this Bills defense playing for the last 2 seasons, I mean, he's got
Yeah.
counters for counters, and I mean he's scheming it up with the best of them. And Matt
Well, and to have
Milano,
that I was going to say, to have that success with as many injuries as they've dealt with,
Yep.
that's when your system shines. That's when it becomes the defensive coordinator is shining. When you have all your studs in there, that covers up a lot of deficiencies. So, I mean, that's on his resume is what they're doing right now,
Well, and like I said, Matt Milano, that dude absolutely shut down
playing out
Patrick
of his
Mahomes
mind.
almost single handedly. He was
Hmm.
playing a spy almost the whole game, where he would see what he's going to do as soon as he knew he was passing. I mean, he was beelining straight for him and forcing a lot of pressure, forcing him to get rid of the ball. So it was a great game plan. They had two over the top man-to-man coverage pretty much throughout the game. They threw a couple zone coverages in there. That defensive line is fantastic. Matt
Well,
Milano
and
at
they're
linebacker is an absolute stud, and like I said, they're still getting Tre'Davious White back, so it's going to
their
be a really
defensive
difficult
line.
team.
I was just going to say their defensive line with the way they're running it right now. That's what I like about this Bills team is everything's team first. You look at a player like Poyer driving 15 hours. That boy wants to play. That defensive line, you don't have anybody that's fighting. I shouldn't say not fighting for, but no one wants the limelight. They're rotating that defensive line
Yep.
nonstop. They never don't have four fresh guys on the field, and it shows.
Well,
To be
and
able to have that many good defensive linemen is wonderful.
when you need a closer, you got frickin' Von Miller
Oh,
there that has
God,
all
that
the moves in the world, and still,
such a knack for it.
I mean, he's not the player he was in Denver. We know
No,
that.
no,
But
no.
when you need some pressure, that guy has every move in his back pocket and knows right when
That's
to use it.
terrifying. And
If you saw, he saw that chip block coming, so instead of rotating out, he rotated in and got straight to Mahomes and just
my
wrapped him up.
favorite play of the
Dude,
entire game. There, you can't
absolute
put
stud.
enough on that play. And my favorite thing about Von Miller is he is a monster. He's like this, just you know, like apex predator on the field, but he does it all with like a 10-year-old smile. Like I
Yep,
absolutely love the way he approaches the game. If you don't
loves the
like Von
game.
Miller, outside of maybe being a rival team or something like that, like he's the kind of player that you want to see on the field. He's exciting, but he's also just so fun to see.
Well, and you
So I'm
see
happy
every
for him.
year in the off season he does that pass rusher summit. He doesn't need to share all
Yep.
his secrets. I mean, that's essentially
No,
giving his knowledge to the next guy that's going to replace him. He's not afraid of that. I mean, he is just a stand-up dude. I
he's awesome.
obviously I never cheered for him when he was on the Broncos, but I always loved him.
Yeah,
And seeing him go to the Bills, a team that's like our side team because of Josh Allen, but
for
also
sure.
I mean, it's just great to see. So, uh, speaking of Josh Allen, he was at the Padres game tonight and cheering. He was wearing the Padres uniform, so even more respect for that dude.
Yeah, jeez.
But I guess we should probably talk about the. Well, let's get to the rest of the NFL news here, and then we'll talk about our pokes a little bit. Um,
Okay.
The Broncos, we already talked about. They were back on primetime Monday Night Football. They ended up losing in overtime to the Chargers. Tell me, what did you text to me
I
about
just
that game?
I can't. I just can't get over how many of these games the Chargers have had them two times in a row. I think it's 2 weeks back to back. They're just in these games that are deadlocked and no one wants to win. Like I'm telling you, they are doing everything in their power to give the other team. It's like hot potato though. Nobody wants it.
Yeah.
Like it is mind boggling to me, these games. I don't know. I just like I turned the game off. I'm so over it. They're not exciting.
It was like one of those proverbial car crashes where you can't look away for me. But I mean
Oh, it's terrible.
it had more meaning for me because if the Broncos win, then we're those two are at 3-3 in the division, within 2 games of us. Obviously, we're 1-4, which is not ideal, especially at this point in
Yeah.
the season. But I was almost cheering for the Broncos, but then I was like, you know what? Ty wouldn't be so bad either. Ty would not be so bad either. And then
Oh,
it
jeez.
took the Chargers pushing the blocker for the punt into the return man, and then he muffed it, covered by
Yeah.
the Chargers for them to win it. So Just an awful game. I'm so sick of seeing the Broncos on the TV, and it's going to happen again this week because even though I live in southern Utah and it's only 2.5 hours away from Vegas, we get the northern Utah feed, and that
Right.
shows all the
Which is
Broncos
Colorado.
games. So uh, it's frustrating. I
Yeah,
get to watch
you.
the Broncos again instead of my Raiders. So it's fine. Whatevs. Couple other news and notes from, well, I guess the last news and note around the league is the Panthers fired Matt Rhule, which we already talked about. I still can't believe they gave him a 7-year contract. Still baffles me. I think I read that he was going to make $834,000 per week until 2027.
Jeez.
So that's cool. Good
Wow.
for him. But this brings us to the Panthers are now making a good chunk of their team available. They already traded Robbie Anderson, who has become a team problem because they're not getting him
Locker room
involved.
issue.
Yeah, locker room issue. They traded him to the Cardinals, which is just an absolute perfect fit for more locker room issues. But
I saw
that's beside the
one
point.
thing on that trade. I saw the funniest meme, and it said something like, "I'm happy for Robbie Anderson. He went from having one crybaby Oklahoma quarterback, blah 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 blah," and basically insinuating all this negative things, which also describes Kyler Murray. And it ends with, "And now he's got Kyler Murray," and I was like, "All right,
Yep.
that
Yeah.
sums it
No,
up for me."
it's going to be an interesting pairing. I know Hollywood Brown, he has an ankle issue, and it looks like he's going to be out at least the next 4 weeks. So it's an
Yeah,
obvious need for the Cardinals. They're getting D Hop back this week as well. So
I
they
think
should be
the
pretty
D
much at
Hop
full
days are
strength.
done.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I still think he's, a playmaker and all that. I don't know that he's what he used to be, but he's still got some of the best hands in the league. Obviously, performance enhancing drugs aside, we'll leave that on off the table. But I think it'll be a good grab for the Cardinals, and the compensation was pretty low. But at that point,
Yeah,
I think the Panthers were either
they
going
were
to
just
get something
shipping him
for him
off.
or they were going to just cut him. So they got a 2023 sixth, and then a 2024 seventh, if I remember right, in the compensation. So nothing major there.
Just
But CMC is reportedly on the trading block, but they do want a first round pick. So I don't think they're going to get anything near that with the contract that he comes with and the injury
yeah.
history. So what are you thinking about that? Do you think there's any teams that make sense for him?
First and foremost, I agree. I think a restructure's got to happen before that's even an option, and I personally think he'd probably be up for it, depending on where he would end up.
He's not giving that
Um,
money up because he ain't going to get it anywhere else.
all right, fair enough. Um, I don't know. I think there's teams that could be interested. I think more so on the Panthers side. I think you're stupid if you don't do everything in your power to trade him and get as much as you can, because you're basically hitting the reset button here. And he's already been injury ridden. Um,
Yep.
I mean, why would you still want to pay him that much money for the next, say, 2 to 3 seasons while you rebuild and he may or may not be on the field? Granted, I do understand the contract side of it, but there is always a way to work around a contract if you have willing people.
Yep.
Uh, and anymore, I mean, I used to think no one would ever take on a contract like that. I really did, but I don't even recognize the league that exists today. Like,
Well, and
it's almost like money isn't real.
I think in the past it wasn't possible for teams to absorb part of the contract, and I think they made that
Yeah.
possible now. So I think that may be less of a hurdle if the Panthers are willing to pay some of that contract. Um, it's always happened in baseball where the A's would pick up a veteran off the Yankees or something that was past his prime, but would
Right.
teach the young guys and all that, and the A's would pick up only a minor portion of the contract, and the Yankees would eat the rest. But I think they made that possible in the NFL semi recently. So I do see it possible as him getting moved, but not for the compensation that the Panthers are looking for. And I get it; he's their best player, but at the same time, the contract compared to what you would get relative performance wise from another running back contract it's just astronomical.
Not
So
that big a difference. Yeah.
yeah, it's just I don't see a trade probable, but I do think, and I hate to say this, but I think he would make the Denver Broncos offense a lot more dynamic if he went to the
See, and
Broncos.
I'm picturing more. I'm picturing more on the contender side of things. I'm picturing one of these teams that are at the top of the league that need a little bump. Um,
San
and I
Francisco,
mean, and I'm talking
Bills.
teams that. Well, and that's one name that got thrown out. I don't see it happening because they're a very blue collar team. I don't see them wanting or needing to bring somebody in, but um, the things that got me going was like imagine a healthy CMC on a team like the Eagles that are already just firing on all cylinders. He comes in and plays, not that they're the same running back or same body type, but a Darren Sproles type where he's playing out of the backfield all the time.
Yeah,
Um, you mentioned San Francisco. I mean, that could be something that gives them a jump start because they're kind of struggling right now. I'm still trying to figure out what San Francisco is right now. I have a really hard time picking their games recently. Uh, but
you
that's
know
kind
who
of where I
needs him?
see who.
The Titans. If they had
Oh, that would be a
CMC
wicked one too.
and Derrick Henry
See, and
out of the
that's
backfield,
that's what I'm talking about. Is I in my mind, like if I'm him, but I also don't have the obviously the reference of making that kind of money.
yeah,
But if I was him, I would restructure in a heartbeat and say, okay, but I want to be able to dictate partially where I go.
yeah.
Um, go to a
Or
contender.
I mean,
I just
even the Jets, Brees Hall and CMC coming out of the
I've
backfield.
heard I've heard everything from the big ones that jumped out right away that I saw in a lot of the media was the Bills and the Green Bay that they would have another one too.
Yeah,
He,
I don't
he
think
could
Green
go
Bay makes
play
sense,
anywhere.
but
No, I
and
don't
that
see Green Bay making that move ever. But
the
I
reason
see
why
him
I'm
going to a team like that.
yeah, the reason why I'm listing off AFC teams is because I don't feel like the Panthers are going to want to send him to the or to the NFC. I know the Broncos would love to have him, and I think he would make a huge difference in their offense. But I don't know if he necessarily wants to go to a last place team
Yeah,
ish. Obviously, we're in last place right now, but that's not where we're going to end up. We already beat the Broncos once. We're going to beat them again.
I love it.
But
I don't know. I think it's possible, but if I
okay,
was the Panthers, I would want to trade him
yeah, I
because you're hitting the reset button.
and like I said, I don't think it's going to be possible unless they're able to pick up some of that contract because no one's going to want to pay a running back that much money. But we'll move on from that. Our Wyoming Cowboys, they play Utah State, which is a interesting
Big game
matchup.
for us.
Levi Williams is, going to be matching up against his former team. Peasley's going against his former team. Right now, it looks like we got the better end of that transfer trade, so to speak.
Yeah.
I do think I haven't checked the lines lately, but I believe the Cowboys are favored in that game. I am excited to see this one, although I don't know if I'll be able to watch
First
it
game I
live.
circled this year.
You like this matchup, huh?
Oh yeah, this is the very first one I circled after the off season happened the way that it did.
Yeah. It it should be an interesting game, and they kick off basketball schedule here pretty quick too. I think they were just outside. They were one of the teams receiving votes for the top 25, but I don't think they were. I think they were ranked like 29 or something, so just on the outside looking in. And quite honestly, I think before too long they'll be climbing up those ranks with all the transfers that they had from UCLA, and I think they were all from UCLA, but they had some pretty good high star transfers, plus the Maldonado, EK existing
Yeah,
roster. So it should be a pretty good team. I'm excited to watch them
pretty
play.
hopeful.
Yep. Anything you had to add about the Utah State game, or just that you're
No,
looking
just
forward to it?
excited. I mean, we're really going to be able to see what we lost and what we gained. I mean, I guess that's the fun part, but I really do think we have a better product than they do.
Yeah.
which there's not been that many times this season I've felt that way going in. So hopefully we come out of there with a W.
That's what we're all hoping for. So let's touch on MLB playoffs. Those are obviously in the thick of things. We just had the Padres and Phillies. They already finished up game 2 in the NLCS. It's been an exciting series. I really didn't
like
see
it.
the
It's been
Phillies.
fun.
I
I
didn't
told
see
you,
the
man.
Phillies at
I
all.
told you.
They have great pitching, and they have good offense, but their defense is horrid. So I didn't see them making it this far, especially where
It's all about the coach, man.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they
I don't.
let Joe
It's
Girardi
weird.
go halfway through the season, so everyone was
Yep.
like, "Yeah, this season's already over for
They're
the
done.
Phillies," and they end up making it to the playoffs and knock off. Who did they knock off in the first round? The Mets.
The Mets.
So that was
And
very
it was
surprising.
ugly.
Yeah,
Ugly.
that was a rough series for them. So
I have
it's
a
going
hard
to be
time going for the
interesting.
Phillies, but it's fun to watch.
After seeing, I don't know if you saw that Padres rap that was going around on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
After seeing that, I was like, okay, Phillies sweep. And the way that game 2 started, it was 4-0.
Starting to wonder if it was going to be real bad.
Oh shit! And Nola was pitching, so it was surprising that the Padres were able to come back, but had a real good second inning. They scored 5, I think. Yeah, they scored 5, and ended up taking the lead 7-5. Machado hit a solo home run to make it 8-4, and then they had, I can't remember how the Phillies scored their 5th, but ended up 8-5. So the series is tied 1-1 going back to Philadelphia. That's going to be a fun one, I think. And then the ALCS just kicked off tonight. Yankees had a bunch of inclement weather. I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, I said no one cares.
Yeah, no one cares. I really hope the Yankees win that one, which feels dirty saying that, but obviously being an
I hate that I'm pulling for them.
Absolutely hate the Astros anymore after the crap that they pulled, especially when we were in contention for that AL West when they were pulling all that crap. So, my aunt, even though I said, so what I said to her was, she's a huge Yankees fan from New York. I told her, I'm cheering for your Yankees, even though I don't think they'll be able to beat the Astros. And she gave me the whole, and she said, I don't want that negativity. I was like, I told you I'm pulling for you guys. And she was like, I don't care. I don't want any negativity in this. So anyway, I think the Astros will win it. I really hope the Yankees do. And then whoever wins out of the NLCS, I hope they win it all. We already talked about that this afternoon. But I'm really hoping for the Padres. I love Bob Melvin. Obviously, he's our previous manager. This is his first year with the Padres, and I really think he's one of the best managers in any league, let alone MLB. So I'll be really happy for him and Sean Manaea if they end up winning the World Series. But anyway, anything you want to talk about with baseball before we move on?
No, I think that sums it up.
Okay. So one exciting game that I was really just pumped to see was in college football. Obviously, our Cowboys were off, so we had a bye week and had all the other games to watch. We really tuned in on that Bama and Tennessee game, and it was
glorious.
Oh man, it was beautiful. I love seeing Tennessee win. Fans just covered that stadium after the game.
Rightfully so.
What did you think about that one? I know you're excited about it. But.
First and foremost, I'm not surprised. Even before we came into the season, this wasn't the same Bama team that's been there in the years past. I'm a little personally confused why so many people are surprised. They shouldn't even be in the top 10. I mean, they've been so close to losing multiple games. And I think you'll see that happen after this. You're going to see them continue to drop because I don't think they're the same team. Even the games that they're winning, they're struggling and they're having to, fight through it. And that's not what Alabama does. And then as far as Tennessee, they're probably one of the most underrated teams going into this game, and they made a pretty big statement with this game. So I think you'll see them skyrocket, which they already have. But
Yep.
um, I don't know. It was a matter of time. Every week it seemed like, is Bama good? I mean, you're not asking these questions every week in their national title runs. But every single week, it doesn't make, they could play a Division II team, and I'm going to be like, man, is Bama going to put it together this week?
Yep.
Because even games they should have ran away with, they just look terrible. But as far as the game itself, this is another one. I mean, the score was there. It wasn't a complete blowout. It's kind of like the Bills Chiefs game for me. You saw some good things from both teams, but I never once thought Tennessee was frantic. I never felt like they ever were, I don't want to say concerned, because I mean, you're always trying to win the game, but I never felt like they left what they were trying to do. They stuck to what their game plan was, and it worked. So I was pumped.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
just hate Bama. I hate Nick Saban. So
for sure. And Tennessee, I mean, it looks like they really have one of the better offenses in all of college football.
pretty
And
unreal.
that Hooker quarterback, dude's a stud. I am very impressed with him. I think consensus he's been ranked around the top 5 for the draft in
Yeah,
terms of quarterbacks.
I think you'll see that a lot higher by the end of the year.
I really hope he slips that low so the
I don't
Raiders can
think
pick him
so.
up.
I really don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. And I was talking to my father-in-law. We were watching that game at his house, and we were talking about the Alabama quarterback. What's that kid's name?
Young,
Bryce Young? Yeah, Bryce Young.
Bryce Young.
And I was saying I can't believe that people, have him as the number 1 quarterback. And that's not, you know, I don't want to say he's not a talented quarterback, because he
Okay.
absolutely is. But his size, I mean, he's shorter than Russell Wilson, but he also is like 20 pounds lighter than Russell Wilson. So
He's tiny.
just seeing him take all those hits from the Tennessee defense, I was just wondering, is he going to get back up the entire game? And they were getting a lot of pressure on him, getting a lot of good hits on him. I thought for sure he was going to
I
go out in that game, but
My biggest knock on him is that I feel like he's one of them quarterbacks, and I mean maybe he'll grow. I don't know, but I really do think he's one of those quarterbacks that when times are good, when they're up by 30, he's playing. I mean, he thrives off of it. When they've
yep.
hit some adversity, some of the throws and I mean, I was really blown away by a lot of these games. They're not putting a very good product on the field.
Yep.
Whether it's coaching, players, it doesn't matter. They're not putting a good product on the field.
Well, there's plenty. I really feel like this is going to be a pretty strong quarterback class, so I would be shocked if the Raiders don't try to get one
Yeah.
in the first round. Hooker's obviously great. C.J. Stroud of Ohio State, Bryce Young, uh, Drake May, Caleb Williams. There's that one from Kentucky. His name escapes me right now, but
Oh, yeah.
that Texas quarterback, the one that looked like he was going to knock off Quinn, what's his name, Ewers or something like that. When he looked like he was going to knock off Alabama, and then they injured him, and they ended up barely losing that game. But no, I
Yeah,
think
that
college
sucked.
football. I mean, I always say just put Alabama at 1 and leave them there, because it seems like that's what. Even if they have 2-3 losses, it seems like
It's what
that's what
they
they end
try to
up
do.
at the end of the year anyway. Um, they dropped to 6 after losing to Tennessee, but it feels
Yeah,
like
but
at the end of the season they're going to be in the top 4 and in the playoffs
oh,
no
I'm
matter
sure.
what happens.
But
So
take like a Georgia team. It's ridiculous how long it took Georgia to make it up to number one.
yep,
I mean, they have destroyed literally everyone they played. And it doesn't matter who the opponent is. That's what they're expected to do week in, week out. That's literally the Alabama roll tide mentality, is win by 40. I mean, and Georgia was doing it, and they still just finally, I'm so glad they finally lost, because you can't not recognize, a drop at some point for that. But um, there's definitely a lot of buy-in with Bama every year, and I get it. I know what they've done in the past, but man, I wish it was more of a fresh slate every year.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see what happens with that 12 team expansion whenever
Yeah,
that happens, but it seems like it's still going to just be Power 5 teams, but like
for
obviously we'll
now.
see. Um, Moving on to NBA, we had
Yes,
NBA tip
sir.
off. My Warriors went up against the Lakers, and honestly, it even from the outset, both teams were not shooting well. But Steph and Clay got going. Jordan Poole got going. We had Wiseman in there, which was a positive surprise. We had Moody. We had Kaminga, Green. I mean, we had all kinds of role players stepping up in that game, and they wanted to keep Thompson's minutes down, so they had a lot of the younger guys playing throughout the third and fourth quarter. And honestly, that was the only time that the Lakers even made a move was when we had. I think there was only two starters on the floor at the time, and the Lakers had their entire starting lineup on there. That's the only time they made it even interesting, and I think they brought it within 18 at that point. So it's quite apparent that the Lakers are in another rebuild season. They won't admit it because, really, I think that Russell Wilson trade took them back probably 2 seasons, essentially, where, I mean, unless they can ship him off, even if they do, they're probably going to have to give up assets because of his contract just to get rid of him. So it might be another season where they're just holding on to him and hoping for the best. I know the approach was he's going to be the head of the second team, but it's just quite apparent to me that Warriors are head and shoulders above the Lakers at this point in the season. Barring injuries, hell, I think even with injuries, the Warriors are built to sustain those. They have such a deep team right now. They've got the old core, they have the new core, and they're blending those guys together. And I think this is going to be Draymond's last year with the team, but they extended Jordan Poole. They extended Andrew Wiggins for both probably below market value contracts. Um, so I think we're built for the now. We're built for the future, and it's going to be exciting to see what they can do this season. Um, I almost feel spoiled with the Warriors because we've won 4 in the last 7 seasons and got our rings on opening night yesterday, and those rings are beautiful.
Very pretty.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like them because they're just gold, but I mean, it's very fitting for the Golden State
I
Warriors.
mean, it works.
Yeah, but I
I
know you're
do want to
excited
add this
about
one
your.
tidbit.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I hate Draymond Green. Moving on. So I'm gonna. Sorry, I can't wait for you guys to not have him on your team, so I can wish good things for you again.
Yeah.
Um, I just I don't know how anyone puts up with it. The Jordan Poole situation. Mm-mm.
I don't know how they
Nope.
get past that. And I mean, I know they have great veteran leadership and all that. They've got Steph.
I don't care.
It's crazy to me that they're just playing
Uh, the,
together
only,
now.
the only thing I hope is that somehow Jordan Poole made a comment about the fact that they didn't need him to win. Like, I hope that's what started it. That would be the only thing that would make me okay with it.
I
I
think
hate
what
him. I can't wait for him to not play.
I think what Jordan Poole said is, "I'm rich, bitch."
He could get away with that one. I don't know. I just can't fathom. Like, I miss the old days. Like that that shit wouldn't fly on your team because you would literally have your entire team handle this person, and it's not the way the leagues are nowadays. Um, I don't know. I hate him. Moving on to the Magic. They played the Pistons tonight. They didn't win. I think they lost 113 to 109. Um, I was pretty happy with it though. They stuck with it the entire game. Yeah, they trailed most of it, but it never got out of hand. The young guys looked good. Um, our I can't remember his name now. Our first round pick um, went number one. Oh, Banchero or however you say his last name.
Paolo
He had a
Banchero. Yep.
That guy. He had a huge game. Some nasty dunks. He's playing aggressive, and that was really fun to see.
Oh yeah.
Uh, he's definitely electric. I think it's going to be good. There's just a lot of young guys. I mean, I feel like I'm talking about the Pirates here, but it's kind of the
Yep.
same story, different league. But it's exciting. I'm very interested to see where they're at in say 3 years when this core can stick together and actually build something. I mean,
Let
I'm
me give you a
expecting
stat when you're
some
done.
product before that, but okay, that's really all I got. Is I was just happy with how well they hung in the game, and it's only the first game, so it's you can't weigh into it too much, but
All right. This stat is coming from NBA history at NBA history on Twitter. Since 1969, only 3 number 1 overall picks have dropped 25 plus points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, 5 plus assists in their NBA debut. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, LeBron James,
hmm hmm
Paolo Banchero. So
I
pretty
mean, it's a
impressive.
pretty good list when you're talking records.
Yeah.
No,
So
and I like that he's got that chip on his shoulder because I know so many people were not necessarily a fan of that pick when it happened. Um, I don't know. He's got a little bit of a little bit of a case to prove, and it's fun seeing him play that way because he gets after it, and it's fun to watch.
yeah, no, he went for 27 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists tonight. So
Yeah,
pretty
he
impressive
had a good
debut.
game.
And that's always been the story. I mean, it seems like every year for the last, I don't know, 3, 4 years with the Magic, it seems like all everyone talks about is the positivity of the
Yeah,
potential of this team, and it obviously hasn't added up. But hopefully, this season is the season where they take that step. And obviously, having the number 1 pick is a
yeah.
good little thing to have in your pocket there. So, anything else you
Hopefully not
had
too
with
often.
your
I'd
Magic?
like to get away
Well,
from the first,
yeah,
at some point, but.
but having him there now, you
uh,
don't need to have that first pick anymore.
I guess the last thing I would say is to your point. It's kind of exciting because he's kind of that player that you're like, okay, you've built this young core. Now you kind of have that linchpin that, like, you know, gets everything moving. And so obviously it's early, but the hope is that he's that guy. And I mean, he came out and had a pretty good statement game. Whether they lost or whether they won or not doesn't really matter. The team looked good, so I'm hoping they can build off something. Maybe not be in the cellar of the league this year, and that's a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, I do want to add one note, and that is that the Wyoming Cowboy football Twitter account got me freaked out because they posted a clip from a Wyoming Utah State game that must have been from last year,
Oh,
and it was showing Cam Stone making a pick six. It looks like, and I was like, "Is that game tonight?" I swear it was Saturday, and so I was freaking out, looking everywhere to find out when that game was. And it is Saturday. This was must have been from
okay, good.
last
I
year or
was going to be
something. But
mad.
yeah, I was freaking the hell out. But you have a couple other notes you wanted to get to here.
Just one last thing. I mean, speaking of I guess your Lakers game, but um, I saw that it came across that LeBron has announced this will be his last season.
See, and I can't
Um,
find that anywhere. Where did you see that?
s- I'm not sure. I'm after your surprise about it. It makes me wonder if it wasn't just some random headline or something that popped up. I was busy, so I didn't actually read anything. I just saw the headline, but
Yeah, I was
um,
like, what? He said he wanted to play with his son, so I
well, and
can't find
even
it
even
anywhere.
after even after I put it on the list, that's why I was like, all he ever talked about was playing with Bronny. Like,
Yeah,
I'm confused, and I honestly can't find anything else about it either. But the one thing I will say is, when and if that does happen, um, I mean, all I can think about is where that leaves the Lakers. And even if he goes somewhere to play with Bronny, like, not only they're in such disarray, but you have the one guy who probably kept you in half your games.
yeah.
Uh, it just got me thinking of this dynasty or this persona that the Lakers have been for literally decades. Um, I don't know. It's kind of interesting that they could very easily be, in the same position the Magic have been the last few years, bottom of the
I feel,
league, like that fast.
yeah, and I feel like you said, it puts them in a tough spot. I feel like they would be towards the bottom of the league, but I also feel like whenever he does make that move, it's going to put them in a better situation to actually start the rebuild. Um, they're not a good
Actually, build
team
a
right
team,
now.
maybe.
Yeah,
No,
with him, and I feel like I said, making that move for Russell Westbrook, I feel like that set them back 2 seasons at least, if not more,
yeah,
because of all the capital they gave up. And then if they are to move on from him, they're going to have to give up capital to go to basically compensate whatever teams are willing to take on that contract. So um, it's not a good thing for them. Um,
no.
let's move on to NHL. I know your team's a lot better than my team, so you
I'll
go ahead
just
and take the.
it's early, much like the NBA or MLB season. Um, things really pick up there at the late end of the regular season, so you can actually see how things are going to shape up. But I'm really excited about the season just because of how old our team is. I talk about the trifecta all the time. We got Letang, Malkin, and Crosby that have been together now the record for any major league sport of 3 players together with 17 seasons, which is pretty special. Um, but we have a lot of young guys, and the way that they're starting to, much like your Warriors, starting to intermingle and kind of, uh, retool how the team works. It's showing up on the ice quickly this season. Our first 2 games, we won 6-2. One of those games against Tampa Bay Lightning, which are slouch. They just came off of back-to-back Stanley Cups not that long ago. So it's pretty exciting. The one game we lost in overtime to a tough Montreal team, and really we should have had that one. But you can see it on the ice. There's the old guys look younger, the young guys look wiser. It's exciting. I think it's going to be a good year. I think we have a better team than we did last year. So I just love hockey season, man.
I wish I could
It's glorious.
say that I'm excited about this hockey season, but I mean, we started 0-5, so
Yeah,
not much
yeah.
optimism there with the Sharks. It's definitely a middle of a rebuild, so not looking too forward to it. I was considering subscribing to the NHL package, but I don't think that's going to happen based on how this has looked so far. One last note, unless you have something else, and this is baseball
Nope.
related, but the Astros just took a 4-1 lead. Just Verlander threw an absolute gem. Left with a 3-0 lead. Montas is in to pitch for the Yankees and just gave up a home run within his first 5 pitches or so. So looks
Hey, but
like,
at least they got that home run record. Woo.
yeah, it's something, I guess.
All right,
All
I'm
right.
done.
With that being said, I'm gonna be out probably on vacation. So Kyle, I know you go back to work, so this will probably be our last one for this week. But we'll both
Yeah,
try to check in with a reel or at least
definitely.
something to get you guys some content out there. So, like I said at the beginning, there's this link right above my head. I don't know if you can see my finger. There it is. You can get us on all our socials there. There you go, as well as our YouTube channel, all that. So anywhere you guys want to consume this content on top of the streams and all that, it's all there. We post the videos after we stream, so you guys have them on the Anchor, on your podcast platform of choice, YouTube, whatever. So
And we
appreciate you guys tuning
appreciate
in.
every comment, every view. Thank you so much.
Yep, and we love getting back to you guys through those comments on whatever social media platform you guys prefer. So, thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next one.